It was all that Dan Marino's fault. Everyone knows that. If he had held the ball laces out like you're supposed to, Ray would never have missed that kick. Dan Marino should die of gonorrhea and rot in hell. Would you like a cookie, son?
Well, we're going to have some fun because I'm about to introduce you to a good friend of mine in a new podcast format for the Welcome to the Bomb House channel. If you've listened to the last episode, which I believe will be uploaded today. What's today? September the 3rd. It's Independence Day. It's freaking Labor Day. It's freaking Labor Day. And we're working. But so this is going to be new. Jimmy is taking a break. You won't hear Jimmy's low, sexy vocal on this podcast because we're going to be doing something new for the NFL season. And what are we going to call this podcast?
Welcome to the Bomb House Throwing Bombs edition, I guess.
I like throwing bombs. We're just going to call it throwing bombs.
Throwing bombs. That sounds good.
So the voice you're hearing is a longtime friend of mine. His name is Gage Gwynn. Gage, how old were you the first time I met you? Were you even 10 years old when I met you?
No, I was probably like six or seven, honestly.
So Gage's dad is a very close friend of mine. I love your dad very much, and he's an amazing drummer. That's how I originally met him. He played drums for an old band of mine, and then since then I would consider your dad a good friend and a confidant, right? Mm-hmm. And then over the years, me and you have always kept in touch, always.
Even doing my senior project.
Yeah, you did. You did. You did your senior projects here in the studio, and it's always been funny because we've always talked about the three common subjects we've always talked about have been music, video games,
and football,
and
lots of football.
We get passionate about football. We've been playing Madden together. We played Madden together for a long time.
Oh, I know.
So.
We always text each other when the Ravens beat the Dolphins.
We'll talk about that here in a second. So anyway, you've talked about doing this podcast for a long time,
right?
And that's what we're gonna do. And the idea is we're gonna set the format today. We're gonna try to keep it to 30-40 minutes. We are fans. That's it. We're not claiming to be professionals. We're not claiming to be a major media source about football in general. We're two guys, fans, talking about a sport that we love.
Exactly.
That's it. And we're going to have, the thing I like about Gage is he's willing to argue with me about things, and we have great, like our lunch, when we have lunch together, you're going to basically listen to what our lunches are like. And usually, where do we have those lunches at?
Mountain Burrito.
Okay, nobody's surprised there. So, but that's it. We're going to have fun. We're going to do this for the football season. I think that's going to be the plan. We'll upload them every week. The normal podcast format will be on hold till November, whenever Jimmy can come back. Jimmy's getting, his wife's getting ready to have a kid, and he's recording a record with Rooted. He's got a lot of stuff on his plate right now. I totally understand. So this just gives us an opportunity to expand what we want to do with the channel. And there'll be some other episodes too, but if you're listening to this podcast, you're going to be hearing about football, NFL football, professional football, some college, but we're going to talk about NFL football. So I want to just tick everybody off right now, but let's talk about the Anthem issue.
Oh, the Anthem issue.
And I got to tell you this story. I went to go see the Carolina Panthers and the Miami Dolphins. I think it was a week ago last Friday. They came down and played a preseason game here. Chip Latham got me some tickets. He has great seats.
Right.
Brought my wife with me. I was like, man, this is going to be great. And sure enough, when the anthem started, right, some players on the Dolphins team, they raise their hands, I think. One of them raises their hands is what they do.
In like solidarity or something.
Yeah. And we could talk about that too, why they're doing this. But I'm telling you, this happened. I hear an older lady, it was a white lady, start yelling at the players doing it. Like, this happened in like 10 seconds.
Wow.
Like I hear this old lady yelling, And then there's an African American gentleman on our row, and he uses the F word.
Oh.
He says F this, and sits down. He's sitting down through the anthem with his hands crossed, just with his arms around it. That's it. He was obviously, his body language was like F this, F you.
Right.
Like he was the exact opposite of what that lady was screaming. And I'm sitting here like,
what is even happening?
are you serious? Like that situation, right? With the white lady and then the African American gentleman, pretty much is what we see played out on social media.
Exactly.
Right? And when did this whole thing start? Like 2 years ago? It was when
Kaepernick asked the Seattle Seahawks long snapper, actually, the Green Beret, advice on what to do for respectfully, or not, I wouldn't say respectfully, I'd rather say just peacefully protest the anthem towards police brutality.
Yes.
And he said that the most respectful thing to do is just to kneel and don't create a big scene, which of course just created just a big scene.
Well, it happened on a year where we were having candidates run for the presidency, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you had that. The NFL as an entity has really, over the last 5 years, found itself in the media in a very negative way. Mm-hmm. It hasn't all been positive. A lot of players have been arrested. Every time an NFL player, I mean, anything could happen to an NFL player. We're talking something as simple as a traffic ticket to something much more major.
But it's painted out awfully.
Yes, it is. It is in the media and in social media immediately. There are YouTube sites based on it. It is easy clicks. Right? When I say clicks, we're talking about getting that ad revenue for those clicks, right? So that's how it originally started, and then it started catching on with other players on teams.
Right.
And then, we're fast forwarding a bit, and then obviously our president starts tweeting about it, right? And he starts tweeting about it. President Trump starts, I'm going to call him President Trump out of respect, but he starts tweeting about it, okay? And then Mike Pence, as vice president, him and his wife set up, I mean, they go to visit a San Francisco game knowing what's going to happen.
Right.
And they basically stage a walkout. They basically walk into the stadium, they watch the players do it, they get angry and leave. They post something on social media, right?
I didn't think this was going to happen.
And they left.
Surprise.
Yeah, they were surprised that it happened. Okay, so if you think, listeners, that Mike Pence and his wife and the Republicans went in there for just to watch a football game, you're smoking something. And I want to know what it is, and I'm going to put it in my cookies, because they didn't go there to watch a game. They came there to make a point.
Right.
They went there to get votes. Sorry if you disagree with that opinion, but they absolutely did it to get clicks.
Right.
Social media. And you better believe if you were a Democrat and you knew they could benefit from doing the same thing, I know they would have done the same thing. So I'm not saying it's a Republican thing. I'm not saying it's a political thing. The bottom line is they did it to get clicks.
Right.
They did it. And in doing so, it divided the fan base. Absolutely.
Oh, for sure.
I know people, including my dad, got really upset. Fox News started harping on it. Starts popping up on Twitter, starts popping up on Facebook, people's opinions. It starts, it caught on like wildfire.
We're in a day and age where, like, the moment something happens, a divide is imminent.
Yes.
Regardless of what happens. Like,
yes.
Something super small, like, I don't know, a player gets a traffic violation. Just a traffic violation's like two sides of everything. Flips out.
Exactly. We get two sides of it, and that's where I get mad about the NFL media. But I think we can both agree. Well, I know when it comes down to the anthem, right? And this is my opinion. I think you should respect it.
Right.
Period. There are plenty of other avenues to protest. Plenty. We live in a country that allows you to do this. And that's
Right.
my other point. We live in a country that allows players to do this. Okay? And that's the bottom line. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. Like, because if we don't allow it, we become like China and we become like Cuba. And these are countries where citizens are graded, basically.
Right.
And you better believe there are strict consequences in those countries. Here we have that kind of freedom, and we need that freedom, to be honest. I mean, it's part of what our country is. So it's taken a life of its own. I don't agree with it. I don't. If I were an owner of the team, and I would respectfully tell my players, if you're going to do that, then just don't step out on the field for the anthem.
Right.
Period.
Which that's the thing. Like, what was it, 10 years ago?
They didn't even have the anthem.
Exactly. They signed the contract.
The general fan doesn't even know. So let's educate the fans here. So the bottom line is, this wasn't even an issue in the NFL till, 10, 15 years ago?
It was like 2009, I believe.
Okay, they signed a contract with whatever military to add. I mean, it's basically a sponsored event is what the anthem is. The NFL's paid.
They're paid for everyone to stand.
Yes, they're paid for that.
And people forget that very fast because they're like, wow, people are disrespecting
So
the
who
flag.
gets that money? The owner.
Yep.
The owners get the money. Okay, so, people really don't realize, hey, they weren't doing this kind of stuff. But the bottom line is, if I'm an owner, Ricky Rod owns the Dolphins, hey, I want you to stay. I want you to have the freedom to protest, but for right now, this is the way it's going to be handled. Because in my opinion, the NFL has done a horrible job. Horrible. They have been so bad trying to figure out how to fix this issue because of, I think the major issue is our president. Okay?
Right.
Because he's not going to let it go. He's proven that. He's not going to let it go. He's going to continually, he's going to bash it. That's what he does, right? He's got Twitter. He's just going to say whatever's on his mind. You're going to have to live with that. The idea is, how do you, as a brand, protect that? My opinion is, you just straight up take it out of the broadcast. That's it. You give the money back.
Right.
You'd be like, you know what? We're not going to take these dollars. We're just not going to do it.
This is causing us to lose viewers.
Yes. And the bottom line is, guys, or fans, there are things that will happen to you personally that will not be fair, right? And you will protest in a different way, right? I have a running joke that I only see white chicks working at Chick-fil-A. Like, it happened last week. Okay, that's a joke, by the way. Please don't get offended. I love Chick-fil-A. I go all the time.
Amen.
But if you compare some of the workers that work there compared to McDonald's, there's a difference, okay? I'm just going to point that out.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, and if I wanted to be really stupid and really crazy, I would just go ahead and, I don't know, I would hate Apple. Right? For whatever reason. I could find any reason to dislike something, an entity. I mean, I hate Tom Brady. I really don't like Tom Brady, but I'm not protesting Tom Brady, okay?
Right.
I'm just not going to do it. So you got to look at yourself first before you go, hey, I'm done. I'm done with this sport, or I'm done with this, or I'm done with Apple products because Tim Cook is a homosexual. Yeah, I said that. It's funny how people are selective, right? Mm-hmm. They can take their whatever belief system, and they can just make it work for whatever reason, and it's fine. And I urge you, if you are offended by the Anthem issue, then don't watch the sport.
Right.
Period. It obviously, I don't think you really care about the sport if you're willing to give it up.
Something that like that offends you to the point where you're just disgusted with the NFL, there's no point in watching.
I mean, I'm super offended by certain video games.
Right.
You know what? I still play them. I love them. But that's me. Okay. So, and how do you feel about it? Like, do you agree with them protesting?
I wouldn't say I agree with them protesting in the manner that they are. Like you said, you can go about it many different ways without having to disrespect certain things.
Yeah.
And I know their intent is good. Like, for them, their intent is for something completely different than just like bashing the flag.
Yes.
It's about police brutality.
It's not about the flag.
Exactly.
And that's but the president has made it about that.
Right.
And that's where the NFL is totally messing it up. And what will happen, and I promise you, there's a lawsuit with Kaepernick versus the NFL. Okay, I do think there's been collusion, and I do think the NFL owners did get together and say, "Hey, we're not going to bring this guy back in." And I'll tell you why. There is talent. There is backup talent on NFL teams that's not as good as he is now.
Sure.
He would be a great backup somewhere.
Well,
RG3 is a good example. RG3, who I thought his career was dead 2 years ago, made the Ravens. Mm-hmm. Made the Ravens with Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
On a hot rookie. He made that team, man. That says a lot.
Oh, I know.
And I'm sorry, Kaepernick's better than him.
Right.
In my opinion.
I would think it goes because I've seen RG3 play this preseason.
Yeah.
I mean, he looked okay. He looks all right.
Yeah,
I mean, of course he's playing second string.
And that's going back to Kaepernick. I think he is still better than a lot of the second string in the NFL, and he could be working. And I think this has obviously all the negative attention. The owners don't want it on their teams, right?
Yeah, honestly,
they just don't.
He could be starting for the Buffalo Bills right now.
Yes,
because
the Buffalo Bills
who
have
do
nobody.
You have Nathan Peterman. Or whatever his name is?
They have Jags, just a guy. They don't have anybody.
They traded away their starter. It's like, what are you doing?
It's crazy,
right?
What teams do.
You have starters sitting here that aren't even getting hired.
I believe it. And anyway, regardless whether if you're listening to this and you disagree with what players are doing, that's great. Like you don't have to go to a game, right?
Right.
You don't have to. The product that's on TV, on Fox TV and CBS, ABC, ESPN. Well, not ESPN. Everything else is free. You don't have to spend a dime.
Partake.
Yeah, you don't have to spend a dime. I'm a little crazy. I love Sirius NFL. I one of the reasons I had that subscription is to listen to the games.
Right.
And I'm a big fan of it. Okay, but we can move on. Let's move on from the Anthem issue. Let's talk about the teams that we pull for, our home teams. Gage, you first.
Home teams or just like
our favorite team?
Okay. I mean, I'm a Ravens fan through and through. We can explain a little bit of the backstory.
How did you become a Ravens fan?
Okay, so
because you've only lived in Morganton,
right?
Okay.
Like I pull for the Titans because my uncle moved to Tennessee. Like he lives in Nashville, So so I pulled for the Titans when he moved out there, and I was like, okay, that's cool. And Steve McNair, he went to the Ravens.
Dude, arguably the Titans put together some very good runs. I didn't like Jeff Fisher. Jeff Fisher is a little bit of a pain in the butt, in my opinion. He's a mediocre coach.
If they had someone else, they would have done wonders.
I mean, Eddie George came through that franchise.
Right.
I mean, there's been some amazing players there.
I mean, Steve McNair won a freaking co-MVP with Peyton Manning. I mean,
that was a good year.
That's how good they were, and like that was the time I was pulling for them. And then, he got shipped off to Baltimore.
Is that when you became a fan, when McNair went over?
When him and Derek Mason, the wide receiver.
Air McNair was legit.
It still makes me sad every 4th of July. Cause like that's,
so was Brian Billick the coach of the Ravens when he got traded there? Do you remember?
I believe so. Or it was like one of his last years. Or like the year before that he quit. Because I know there was an interim period of like between...
When was the Super Bowl year?
It was like
Dilfer year.
2000.
So that was after that, way after that.
Well, yeah. Steve McNair went over there like 2004, 2005.
Oh, okay. So that was quite a while after the Super Bowl.
Right, like he was past his prime, but could still put up numbers.
Yes.
So there was like a 2-year period of where they were like searching for someone, and I was like still like, woo, go Ravens. And then they drafted Joe Flacco and got John Harbaugh in the same year.
Yeah, I remember.
Since then they've,
I mean, they've been... you could argue they're an incredibly successful franchise.
Yeah, people throw shade on them like, oh,
well,
2 titles.
Who's the GM? Ozzie Newsome, right?
Ozzie Newsome is stepping down this year.
He is gonna go to the. He went to the Hall of Fame already
as a tight end,
as a player.
Right.
He should go back as an executive.
Oh, for sure.
Because you could argue he's probably the best GM. And
I mean, look at the talent. I mean, Ray Lewis, Jonathan Ogden.
He has built an excellent team, and in a modern NFL, right, the teams have salary cap restrictions.
Right.
He has been really good. He has just been able to manage it, and I mean, you like Flacco, right?
Yes, I do like Flacco. I believe that they drafted Lamar Jackson, so he had pressure to perform for one last season.
Honestly, Lamar Jackson, it's Lamar, right, with an M, or is it
Lamar? Yeah.
He to me, he didn't play very well at all until the Dolphins game. And let me tell you, the Dolphins' second defense is doo-doo butts anyway. Our depth, the Dolphins don't have any depth anyway, so it's very difficult to gauge his performance when he's beaten up on arguably a
college, FCS team,
bro. I think the Dolphins are the power rankings came out today. They're 32. So you can't.
Right, yeah.
They're not going to be. They're not considered a good team this year. So it's hard to think. Okay, because I went on YouTube. I watched his entire preseason highlights. He didn't look good until the last 2 games. He did look better, but that again, in preseason, teams do not scheme. They do not scheme.
Right.
Defenses don't scheme.
They just let things go.
Yes.
And
so
see the raw talent.
When a player schemed, it's a totally different game.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite example is Ryan Leaf. Ryan Leaf was picked over Peyton Manning. Right. Ryan Leaf played perfect his rookie year as in the preseason, played out of his mind. They were thinking. And then obviously Ryan Leaf is
just completely.
Yeah, he bombed the first. It was so bad. It was super bad.
Within 2 years, he was out of the NFL.
Yes, and then Peyton Manning didn't have a good rookie year either.
He didn't have a good first 3 years of his career.
Not really.
Literally, he threw 28 interceptions.
You remember when
year.
everything about him was he's just got to win a playoff game. Remember that? That's all I heard. Well, Peyton Manning is yet to win a playoff game. Well, by God, he won a bunch eventually, but it just took it. It's like a superheroes. You can't have the bad guy without the good guy.
Right.
Peyton Manning needed Tom Brady, and Tom Brady needed Peyton Manning. Mm-hmm. They were in the same division, and let me tell you, they duked it out. It was really those were my favorite years of watching offenses in the NFL because the defenses were allowed to do. They were actually allowed to press and hit people, wide receivers. I
also thought the defenses were basically helpless against those 2 quarterbacks.
They were, because
it's just watching.
The systems were great. Yeah.
Right. And whenever you step up against Tom Brady, even now you're like, well, let's just see who.
Well,
he
now
throws
it's not
to.
Even a challenge.
Yeah.
Now
it's he'll bring in some guy that works at Kroger's.
He can throw to anybody.
Last night, and he just comes in and run a route for a touchdown.
That's what it seems like. That's what it seems like. But I know it's not that way.
Right.
I've heard Tom Brady is methodical. He's crazy about the way they run routes and different things. I get it. It's not. It just feels to us like it's just a guy coming off the street. But so let me talk about my team. My favorite team, obviously, is the Miami Dolphins. I had the opportunity to grow up and watch Dan Marino play his entire career. I was still in elementary school, middle school when he became the Dolphins quarterback.
Right.
And I watched him play his first season. David Woodley was the starter that year. Mm-hmm. He didn't start too many games. And you had Don Shula, Hall of Fame coach, legend. Who was known for running the ball. That's what he was known for. He was known as a coach, as a running the ball kind of guy, good defenses. And then they took a chance on drafting Dan Marino, and then they just became obviously one of the most prolific offenses ever.
Right.
It was pretty crazy to watch. And as a kid, you take it for granted. Every year we had a chance. We had a chance to win. And then when he left the franchise, a lot like Jim Kelly, when Jim Kelly left the Bills, and when you have legends that are that good, it's going to happen to the Patriots. When they let Garoppolo go, they let their future go.
Yeah, what the word?
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But bottom line is, the Dolphins have just struggled since. We've had a season of success here. Chad Pennington gave us a great year. Tannehill got us to, Tannehill did get us to the playoffs 2 years ago. I forgot about that. Wow. Yeah, he did. And he had a great year with Adam Gase the first year, But for the most part, it's been a huge plate of disappointment pulling for the Dolphins. It is, Bob, I think it's Bob Ross is his name. Or Rob, I don't know, Bob Ross, the owner, is he's sort of an absentee owner. He's not there a lot, from what I understand.
Right.
You got the old GM from the Jets. I forgot, Tenenbaum. Tenenbaum's the CEO of the team, runs the team basically.
Right.
And it's really tough to be a Dolphins fan. It just really is, because you get excited, and then it's just
a collapse. 4 games left in the season.
Always. It was with Joe Philbin as a coach, and I can go crazy and lose my mind about it, but regardless, I'm always going to be a fan. I'm always going to pull for them, and I want them to succeed. But a lot of times, and this is a great example, how one-sided the NFL media is. The NFL media in general, we're talking about Fox Sports, ESPN, radio shows, NFL Network, they're extremely biased.
Oh,
Would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
They're extremely biased.
They have about 6 teams they talk about.
Yes, they have about 6 teams. And let me tell you, they love destroying the Dolphins. There are certain teams they love destroying the Browns.
Yeah, the Browns.
They love
the Jets.
destroying San Diego. They hate San Diego.
Right.
It's great, and if you notice, if you start paying attention to the media a little bit, and it is absolutely mind blowing. I've read the funniest article today or yesterday. John Elway at Denver. Okay, we can all agree John Elway's been a pretty solid GM for that team, right?
Yeah.
They've done well with him as a GM. He's had a very interesting rise in the executive world. It's been interesting to follow his career arc, And then last week I read that the entire class of 2017, the rookies are all not even on the team, the draft. Right?
The whole team.
So the article was but the whole article is 2 paragraphs of him basically of the person saying, yeah, he sucks. And I'm thinking to myself, no, they had a Hall of Fame quarterback, got a Super Bowl win, and now they're trying to find another quarterback. That franchise is going to stink.
And they've still kept the top 10 defense.
Yes,
throughout.
they have. And I think it's and that's a point I wanted to make. The success of your franchise totally depends now in the modern NFL on your quarterback.
Right.
Bottom line. And this leads us into the final point of this podcast. Who do we feel is going to be in the playoffs this year? AFC, and the NFC. Well, point me to the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Okay. Number 1, you can just change them out, either Brady or Rodgers. Both of those teams will make the playoffs.
Oh, for sure.
Right? There we go.
Big Ben is going to be on there.
Steelers.
Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan's going to make the playoffs.
Honestly, if Andrew Luck comes back, their team is not good enough.
I will not acknowledge Andrew Luck until week 5. You can mark it right now.
Yeah.
Let me see how he does in the first 2 months, and then we can talk about Andrew Luck. Right now, in my opinion, he's all talent, hype, and nothing. Because if you look at his record compared to Tannehill, it's strikingly not too different. That's all I'm going to say. We can look at those numbers later. Okay, let's think about quarterbacks again. Russell Wilson, right? Who else do we have here? I like the kid. I really like the Texans kid.
Oh, Deshaun Watson.
Oh, see, he's iffy.
Yeah, he's not top 10.
He has a chance.
He can be top 10.
They have a chance to make the playoffs.
Will you consider Cam Newton top 10?
Yes.
Okay, that's what
yes.
I
love
borderline.
Cam. They have a chance to make the playoffs, right? And you got the Saints,
Kirk Cousins with the Vikings,
NFC. Yes. See, but now, in my opinion, we're getting into the second tier of QBs, right? And so the point of this is, you got a top 10 statistic QB. Your chances of making the playoffs are 86%, 90%.
Right, they're extremely high versus.
So the bottom tier, who were the surprise teams last year that made the playoffs?
The Jaguars. That was probably the only one that was really ridiculously surprising.
Yes, and I was happy for them.
I
had
great.
not watched them play all year because I thought Blake Bortles was doo-doo butts.
He still kind of is.
He sort of is, but they schemed the scheme last year. That defense. And the running game
was ridiculous, and Leonard
was
Fournette
old
carried
school.
them.
It was old school.
Blake Bortles, if you just throw 200 yards, maybe throw 30 times, that's all you got to do.
So if you're a Jaguar fan and you're hating on us, listen, I'm happy. I'm happy, but if I were the Jaguars, right, I wanted them to go get Cousins.
Yeah, or anyone
because
Case Keenum, any
what's
of those
Cousins'
people.
completion percentage? 68. 70%?
No, he's 65, I think.
Regardless.
Blake Bortles is 55, so...
Yes. And there you go. So that's it. That's my argument. If your quarterback is halfway decent, you're going to have a shot at the playoffs. And I think it's, especially living in North Carolina, this podcast is in Western North Carolina. There's a lot of Carolina fans, and I love it when the Panthers are stinking it up. The Cam Newton hate starts filling up my Facebook feed and the Twitter feed. We hate Cam. You get somebody else. Blah blah blah. Let me educate you guys real fast, okay? Cam is a linebacker playing quarterback. His size is ridiculous. His arm is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. His speed and size are ridiculous. If you ask a defensive coordinator who scares them the most, they're going to say Cam Newton. Because he will just crush your soul. I've seen it. You watch, I tell you what, okay, Mr. Genius, Bill Belichick, mm-hmm. right? He's considered the defensive genius over the years. Granted, his defenses the last 4 years
usually
have been bend, don't break. Mm-hmm. They've been statistically awful.
Right.
Awful. And it's really not his fault because it's the rules of the NFL now. The rules of the NFL benefit offense.
Right.
Right? And when you watch him play the Panthers, they struggle. They struggle mightily. There is something about the Carolina defensive scheme, Luke Kuechly in the middle. There's something about that cover 2 scheme that they run that really messes with Brady. Right. I don't know what it is, but you can see Brady going through his reads and he's dumping it off for those 7-yard runs. And they might as well be run plays, but they're just these short little passes.
Right.
It kills him. Because you basically have to play 4 quarters of very conservative football. And you can see him wanting to go for the jugular, and it's fascinating to watch. It really is. So go watch a Carolina and a Patriots game, okay? Or go watch Carolina play what I would consider a really strong defensively coached team. For example, the Rams. They've got Wade Phillips. Wade mm-hmm. Phillips is this super cool old guy. Everybody loves him, right?
Right.
Except the owners, everywhere he goes and coaches, his first year, they're unbelievable with him. They win so many games. He doesn't win a lot of playoff games, and then the Joker gets fired 2 years later. Then he becomes a defensive coordinator for whoever's team it is, and that team almost always ends up in the Super Bowl. Denver Broncos are a good example. He was their defensive coordinator when they won with Peyton, and mm-hmm. Peyton didn't play great in that game.
Oh, my gosh.
He was at the end of his career, and that defense absolutely beat the doo-doo butts out of camp.
That whole year was an embarrassment.
Yeah.
But that defense carried that team so hard.
And then he goes over to the Rams, right? Mm-hmm. Last year with a quarterback that not everybody thought was going to be amazing.
Nope.
What's that kid, Goff?
Yep, Jared Goff.
Right? Rookie coach. He's like the LA Rockstar coach. What's his name, McVay?
Yeah, Sean McVay. He's 36.
Dude, have you ever seen the pictures of him with his girlfriend? He's dating some supermodel or something. I'm like, what? You never see coaches with chicks like that.
No, they're normally 55.
I know, it's great. He's this hot shot guy, But they had an incredible year, and they have really good talent. All of a sudden, they're Peter King's pick for the Super Bowl. He picked him for the Super Bowl this year.
Wow.
I love Peter King. I love his podcast. He's great. But he's got the Rams going this year. And I'm thinking,
yeah.
I'm iffy. It's possible if they can't figure out how to stop that offense, it's possible. But again, in the NFL, that's another thing I love about the parody of the NFL. It's wide open.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. So, Gage, we're going to wrap this up. Before we go, I want to give a shout out to Jimmy and to Ruddy Man Beard Products. He will always, we always want to support him. Do you have anything else to say? Any thoughts or comments?
Not really. I'm just glad to be
quiet.
I'm just glad to be here and finally
We're just chilling. We're just
get
doing
this
this.
get this going.
The format, we're going to do this every week. We're going to wait till after the Monday Night Football game and expect us to recap fun stuff that happened over the week. We may hit some news things. We'll talk about our teams. We can yell about whatever we want to yell about, right? And we're going to have fun. We're going to have some guests on. We're going to have some friends on and just have a blast. That's the whole idea. If you have any feedback, please check us out on Facebook. Welcome to the Baumhaus Podcast. Website is baumhauspodcast.com. Peace out.
We love tacos, so let Ricky do his thing pronto. Finish the session today, he gon' hit you with the mix tomorrow. Produce, record, mix, master it. Sounding so dope that it gets your past a little hit after hit after hit after hit. Hit after hit, lickety split. What's that smell? Apple cinnamon, ready man big. Got it from Jimmy Jam. Grab the pen again, let me hear it back again.